Hey, good evening, Joe. Thanks for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
always a pleasure to have you on.
yeah.
It's great to see you again, and today's going to be a fun episode. And yeah, I just want to introduce the topic. So lately, you might have seen us doing some interesting episodes where we kind of have this new series where we kind of make a list of maybe some of the worst songs from a band or an artist, and we compile them into a compilation album that we create ourselves. We each come up with a side, and then we have the patrons vote on a single, and then we kind of create our own worst of album from a band. So you've seen all those best of albums, compilations, greatest hits. This is going the other way with it. What if one of those bands put out their worst hits or their worst songs or their biggest failures onto an album? And that's kind of what we're doing today. And the topic is Ozzy Osbourne in the 1980s. So we did restrict it to the 1980s. We might do a part two, Ozzy in the 90s and beyond, but for now, we're just going to keep it in the 1980s. And we're going to give you our worst of album. Is that about right, Joe?
Sounds good to me. I don't know if I don't know how this is going to go over with the rest of the people out there, but I have my own take, and let's get into it.
All right. So we did have some Patreon suggest titles for this album. So if Ozzy put out a worst of 80s album, the title that won the vote was "You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, but Ozzy Tried, ... And that came from Davy from Davy Cinema Flicks Music Picks. The runner-up was Barf at the Moon from Tim's Vinyl
See, I
Confession.
liked Barf at the
I never thought that one never
If I
crossed my
could,
mind.
I want to do as a co-host of this episode. I want to have an extra like filibuster for Barf at the Moon.
I liked that one too. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll was the winner though. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, but Ozzy Tried. So that's the name of our album. So I'll start off. I'll do I'm side one, Joe's side two. I'll do my first track side one. Joe will do his first track side one, and then we'll go back and forth. So I'm going to start off with my first track. So I had a really hard, I'm being honest completely. I had a really hard time with this list because I'm a huge Ozzy fan. I'm a huge Sabbath fan. I'm a huge Ozzy fan. And I pretty much generally rank those 80s albums fairly highly. Like I like most of them and almost all the songs on almost all those albums. So this was tough for me. And I even sent Joe a list and I actually went back, revised it. We got our patrons to vote on the single that the album, this A side and the B side. And even those, I ended up changing some of the ones that we ended up putting on that list. But anyway, so my first track to start off the album is You Looking at Me, Looking at You, which even the title is a mouthful. Now, to be fair, this was a bonus track on the reissue CD of Blizzard of Oz, so it didn't officially come out on Blizzard of Oz. But it's fair game here. I'm putting it on the album. It's the first track, so it's poppy, fluffy, fun way to start the album. So if you like your Oz to be the Prince of Darkness, then this track will absolutely piss you off because it's more in line with hair metal. It tries to kind of have a hooky chorus. It's definitely a way far step away from the proggy and like lyrically heavy stuff that Ozzy was doing in Sabbath. Most of the stuff, even off of Technical Ecstasy, Never Say Die, are better than You Looking at Me, Looking at You. And I think like when you're trying to rhyme, sorry,
Do
go
you
ahead.
wonder if it was maybe like a Quiet Riot? I haven't. I like that tune a lot. I'll get into the Randy Rhoads stuff when I get to me. But was it had anything to do with like a? It sounds more like it would be Randy Rhoads' Quiet Riot type song.
That's actually a very interesting point because you might be right about that because I get that vibe from it as well. Absolutely. But it doesn't even like lyrically content wise, like you're a fan of Kiss. I'm a fan of Kiss. Like Ace already kind of did this song with Talk to Me. It's almost like the same lyrical content wise. But even more like, I mean, when you're trying to rhyme like four-letter words, you're probably in trouble, and that's kind of what the song sounds like to me. It is kind of hooky, to be fair. I don't hate this song. I don't think I hate any of the songs on this album that we're picking these lists. I'm a big Ozzy fan, but this is, if you're going to do a worst stuff from the 80s, you'd probably throw this on. And now I'm going to throw it over to Joe. What's your song one, side one? Sorry,
All
song
right.
one of side two.
So I have to respectfully disagree with you, Marco, because I think Randy Rhoads, Ozzy's just about perfect. I don't think there was one bad song that they made together. The first song that I really my first song is So Tired off of Bark at the Moon or Barf at the Moon. It's just, I don't know if Ozzy's trying to be like the Beatles or, show his Beatles influence or something, or I don't know. Just, I can't get into it. The rest of the album is great. I actually like Ultimate Sin. We did an episode on Ultimate Sin earlier this year, or no, late last year, I think it was. And I actually love Ultimate Sin. But So Tired is my first track. I can't listen to it. It just doesn't fit in with Bark at the Moon. And it's Ozzy. I don't know what he's trying to do. Maybe he's trying to sound like the Beatles. That's about it. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And that was going to be one of the picks on my side. You stole it from me, so I ended up having to pick something else. But no, that actually came up. Louder Sound did a ranking of the top 10 worst Ozzy songs of all the eras, and that came in at number 9. So it went from 10 to number 1, the worst. So that came in at number 9 on that one. But I agree with you. Ozzy had the habit of almost all of those albums putting like a sappy ballad on it. And that one, and I said this in the Bark at the Moon episode we did with what I did with Martin, I said that's probably the sappiest out of all the, at least the 80s ones for sure. Awesome. My track 2, side 1, this is from the Ultimate Sin, and I picked Never Know Why. Now, Ultimate Sin is probably my least favorite album from Ozzy from the 80s, but it's actually grown on me quite a lot. My issue with Ultimate Sin isn't so much the songs, because when I was I was listening to Ultimate Sin, I thought I was going to be able to pick a bunch from Ultimate Sin to put on this. But as I kept listening to it over and over again, I actually liked most of the songs. My issue is kind of more the performances on that album. I just kind of feel like Ozzy isn't as passionate about his vocal performance. It almost kind of, and I said this on the episode that we did on Ultimate Sin, so it almost kind of feels like he's sleepwalking. And this is actually a good example of that. The way he delivers on the lyric in this, we rock. It's almost like you have to kind of pinch him to get into this song a little bit, because his performance isn't inspiring on this song for me. Now, this also came in on the Louder Sound top 10 worst Ozzy songs. Louder Sound calls it uninspired, repetitive, turgid nonsense. This was the one song that I made my choice from Ultimate Sin.
All right. Well, we did an Ultimate Sin episode for a reason, because it's a dark horse, a controversial album. I absolutely love that album, but there were people that that didn't. This is going to be a theme for the rest of the episode for me, because I really started checking out with Ozzy for No Rest for the Wicked. I love, full disclosure, I knew Jakey Lee was out of the band. He picks up this hotshot guitarist, the new Randy Rhoads. I love Miracle Man. Then the album just falls off a cliff for me. I'm gonna go with the flat out worst song on this album is The Liar. Once again, it's like So Tired, but he just goes for that mellow, whiny. It's not, the last good song I think he did. Well, he on the first couple albums he did good songs like that, like Mother Earth, but that went into a jam. Changes was from the volume 4s. That was great stuff. This song's just terrible. But yeah, this album it's going to be a theme with me, because full disclosure, the rest of my songs come off this album. I started checking out. Ozzy became a cartoon character for me once this album was released, and I'll explain why as we go further into these songs. But The Liar off of No Rest for the Wicked, I'm going to get tongue-tied on this title, is my next pick.
Yeah. Now, wasn't that one a bonus track from the reissue, or was that on the original?
You know what? I have to check. I thought it was on the original, but maybe.
I feel like it was
no. It was on the reissue in 2002.
Yeah, and that one, I hear what you're saying about that one. I didn't pick that one, and that's actually a really good pick, because it's kind of a sappy ballad, and even the hook doesn't feel right. Because even like you can look at something like Goodbye to Romance or Tonight from Diary of a Madman, and it's, they're ballads, and yeah, they're a little sappy. I don't mind those ones, and they're kind of hooky, where this one kind of feels like the hook doesn't feel right on that one.
Now, I'll go into this now. Someone recently, that they just announced two Kiss cruises. Everything goes back to Kiss, right? But Black Label Society's playing on one of them. And I heard a guy say, I'm a huge Ozzy fan, but I can't get into Black Label Society. I'm the other way around. I really like Black Label Society, but Zakk Wylde Ozzy, I can't get into. And I'm just wondering if they would have just let Zakk write the songs without Bob Daisley at this point, if they would have kicked more ass. But I'm going with The Liar for my next song. We'll go more in depth why I started checking out with Ozzy on this album.
Good point. All right, I'm going to jump over to my side one, track number 3. This was one that you had a bit of contention with when I sent you my list, but I'm putting No Bone Movies on here from Blizzard.
Oh, I love that song, man.
I don't even hate it. I don't hate any of these songs really. So
those first 2 albums are perfect, but it's your choice.
But interestingly enough, so this one actually came up as Louder Sound's #1 worst Ozzy song from any era. And they said, in amongst the excitement of Crazy Train, Suicide Solution, and Mr. Crowley, this absolute rotter from Ozzy's solo debut, Blizzard of Oz, gets conveniently forgotten. It's not hard to see why this is awful pub rock-a-boogie framing Ozzy wrestling with a lyric that deals with a supposedly hopeless addiction to porn. It's every bit as dreadful as it sounds. I don't totally agree with that. I do think I do think that the lyrics are effective, maybe a little too effective for my overactive imagination. Some of the things Ozzy sings about on this song, I don't necessarily want to have implanted into my brain when I'm trying to rock out, you know what I mean? But this definitely falls in line with the style of song. That's something later like Crazy Babies is. It's totally more hair metal-esque. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but this kind of goes up there with Crazy Babies. Although I will admit that I do like this song better than Crazy Babies. But you have to admit this is a total far leap again from the seriously toned lyrics of something like Hand of Doom from 10 years earlier. You know what I mean? Like, I know he's doing his thing. It's kind of silly. It's kind of fun and stuff like this. But this is, you think of Black Sabbath and Ozzy and Black Sabbath, and you think of that Prince of Darkness and heavy metal and this and that. And this is kind of a goofy, kind of fun song, which is cool. Like, I like Ozzy.
But Crazy Train's that too. Randy Rhoads and Bob Daisley had those pop sensibilities, but were virtuoso musicians. I really like the song, and I know if I could defend it. I mean, I thought it was a fun song, and then shortly after this was released, I actually went to London for the first time, and you go to the Soho at the time, and you kind of get it because that's all there was. No, it was all prostitution and porno, and you're like, okay, no thanks. But I mean, I thought I think it's a fun song. Like I said, the first 2 Ozzy albums for me are perfect. I can't slag a tune on there. So, but it's your choice. So, I have to go.
Thank you. All right, what's your next track?
All right, I'm gonna go with Devil's Daughter because this is where it just really falls off the cliff. Because when I heard Miracle Man, I'm like, all right, this is great. I mean, this is a great song. I like the lyrical content because that was when Jimmy Swaggart got busted with, I don't know what the hell happened, but you knew all those TV preachers were full of it. I forget the other ones that were out there. But the song was very timely. I love the lyrical content. It kicked ass. It was more Zakk Wylde. I was like, okay, he's got another Randy Rhoads in the band. And then Devil's Daughter comes on, and it's just, I'm like, I don't know. And then it just gets more like that. And like I said, Ozzy starts to become the cartoon character for me. That he has become a cartoon character for me. The only time where he shied away from that is when he did the Sabbath reunion in 98. I got back into him. But at this point with Devil's Daughter, it started really falling off the cliff for me. So that's going to be my next tune. In full disclosure, the rest of the songs are off of that album. So,
yeah, which I find interesting because as an Ozzy fan, I kind of felt No Rest for the Wicked was kind of a return to form for him. I felt that overall it was a pretty heavy metal-esque album. And I liked all of the songs except a couple. And this was one of the songs I did like. But yeah, we're both kind of combining our powers here. We might agree or disagree with each other. Yeah. Folks at home might agree or disagree with some of our picks too. But overall, I liked No Rest for the Wicked more than Ultimate Sin, and we kind of go back.
I think one of the things for me is I think Miracle Man is such an amazing song. It makes the rest of the songs sound weak. I wish they would just kept on pumping out that uh that energy.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right, my next pick, Rock and Roll Rebel from Bark at the Moon. Louder Sound ranks this the number 4 worst Ozzy song and says, but this is a 10 a penny, mid 80s metal with nothing to recommend it. I don't quite agree with that because I don't mind it that much, but I do think some of the lyrics are a little stale, I
The
guess.
lyrics are lame. They say I worship the devil, and I know.
It,
Yeah,
it's a little,
I can't argue with you here.
the performances are good, but the lyrics are a little stale and a little, again, not inspired. Maybe in the same way You Never Know Why is. So this is kind of like I'm picking another song in that vein for that reason, because I did have such a hard time because I don't actually hate this song. I did read a user review from Encyclopedia Metallum that said Rock and Roll Rebel has the obviously very cliched theme of rock and roll and rebellion and is a little cheesy, but it is enjoyable to some extent. And that's more where I fall in line with. Maybe wouldn't make my Oz playlist, but I wouldn't skip it if I was listening to Bark at the Moon.
Uh,
But that's my track 4, side 1. So what's
okay.
your side 2, track 4?
Tattoo Dancer, same thing. It's just I don't know. It's got the electronic drums, going in there. It's not the Bob Day the not Bob Daisley the Lee Kerslake. It's just the electronic drum sound. Can't stand it. I know it's a little bit. I know I defended Ultimate Sin. I know what that sound is there, but it's really pronounced on this song, and I just think it's just I don't know. I just can't get into it. It's like they're phoning it in. I they I feel like with this album, like I said, Miracle Man is an awesome tune. I feel they could have relived that magic of the first 2 albums with Zakk Wylde. And I don't know if it's because they kept on relying on Bob Daisley. I don't know. Because the Black Label Society's albums that started coming out, maybe 10 years later, I don't know. But when Zakk Wylde writes alone, I think it's very good, the great stuff. So yeah, I'm going with Tattoo Dancer. I can't do it. I just
Yeah, this is another one I like off the album. It's a bit mid high tempo. It is sleazy, definitely for sure. I really like the when he says "God damn them." I like the power in that when he
yeah.
says that lyric. That's probably my favorite part of the song is probably that. But yeah, okay. So go back to side 1. This is my final track from side 1. My 5th track. I picked "Fire in the Sky" from No Rest for the Wicked. So we talked about kind of sappy ballads. This one kind of bugs me because it is a sappy ballad on, in my opinion, an overall heavy album. It's not a love ballad, nonetheless, but nonetheless, I find for the most part, No Rest for the Wicked is a pretty heavy album, and this kind of brings it down for me. I'm the least impressed with this track out of all my picks, and maybe So Tired are probably my 2 least, and maybe The Liar. Those 3 are probably my 3 least out of all these tracks that we're talking about. And those 3 are songs that I would actually probably prefer not to listen to given the chance. Where like I wouldn't skip Rock and Roll Rebel and I wouldn't skip Tattoo Dancer or No Bone Movies. I wouldn't skip them if they were on. But Fire in the Sky. And this is one John the Music Nut voted for Fire in the Sky off of our list and said that it's beyond Fire in the Sky and Demon Alcohol are both beyond silly. So I got
Demon
to vote for
Alcohol's
them
pretty
too.
bad. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my final pick. It's a ballad. So I got a
Yeah.
ballad on my side, and you got 2 ballads on your side.
Yes. I got to go with Crazy Babies because this is where, it was I think it was the second video off this album. And at first I was like, okay, this is good. And I'm just, you know what? I can't. And if we do a 90s version, I'm going to say the same thing, even more so about No More Tears. I just can't do it. It's just Crazy Babies. And his voice has become, it's not Ozzy anymore. It's a caricature of Ozzy. And it just gets worse and worse. I mean, even when he did the reality show, The Osbournes, I liked a couple episodes and I checked out. But yeah, this Crazy Babies is really disappointing for me because it was their second video that came out, and it could have been so much more. And it just drones for me, and I can't listen to it. Not saying it's the worst in my list. I think the ballads are worse, but just the fact it's like a worm in my head that's not good.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah, yeah. But like I said, I'm repeating myself again. This album is when I started to check out from the Ozzy solo, and I really checked out, really did, until he rejoined Sabbath in the late '90s. But yeah,
Yeah, and this is another one that pops up on the Louder Sound 10 Worst Ozzy songs. And they said, this abomination from 1988's No Rest for the Wicked sounds like Kiss at their most unimaginative. Ozzy has never been afraid of playing to the lowest common denominator, but this is beyond the pale. Nobody's going to tame me, so you better not try. I think Sharon might have something to say about that, don't you? And this was their third worst Ozzy song from any era. And interestingly, in our Patreon poll for our single, this actually won out. This was the most voted. So it was the least favorite of the folks that voted for this on our Patreon. It got the most votes, 54% of the votes. So the Crazy Babies is actually our single A side.
all right.
Our single B side is So Tired. So that makes sense. We have kind of a mid and for actually, to give my opinion on it, out of all the mid high tempo heavier tracks from No Rest for the Wicked, it's probably my least favorite, and then the ballads. So I'm kind of in line with you. So our single A side is Crazy Babies, and our single B side is So Tired. Just to go back over my list, so my side one was You Looking at Me Looking at You from Blizzard of Oz, Never Know Why from Ultimate Sin, No Bone Movies from Blizzard of Oz, Rock and Roll Rebel from Bark at the Moon, and Fire in the Sky from No Rest for the Wicked. That was my 5 tracks on my side one. And your side two?
So Tired, Crazy Babies, the other one, Liar, and Tattoo Dancer,
and Devil's Daughter.
Devil's Daughter, yes. I was deleting them as I was going over the list.
They were so bad you've already forgot them.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So that's our worst of Ozzy album. You can't kill rock and roll, but Ozzy tried. The worst of Ozzy in the 80s.
Ozzy, that's Ozzy for me is an interesting case study because it was so exciting when that Blizzard of Oz album came out. And I got it on the import, and then you had Sabbath getting Dio. But you're listening to Randy Rhoads, and it was like when you first heard the Van Halen. I'm like, I've never heard guitar like this before. And that also plays in a part, albums that have been played to death but are still awesome. And that Blizzard of Oz album, You Looking at Me was a
reissue. Yeah, that was an extra.
Yeah, because I know they released that with they had a live song that was really great. That was
Speak of the Devil.
No, it was on Jet Records. I'll have to think of it, but
it might have been on a single.
Yeah, I think it came out together. But anyway, I thought there was a really exciting time, but then Crazy Train took off and he got huge. But still, I mean, that and then Diary of a Madman, just an awesome. I think the title track, Over the Mountain, has one of the greatest guitar solos of all time, and that's saying a lot because Randy Rhoads is just a wizard. And I like the Jakey Lee stuff a lot too. But like I said, when this came out, I don't know. And we're going to touch on this because we're gonna do. I know we're doing the PIL album talk on Dark Horse albums, but that period of time too for me was very interesting. After 86, 87, 88 for me musically, I started going in a different direction because I think things started sounding too corporate with a lot of the bands that were part of that new wave of British heavy metal or part of that movement. I don't know if you can include Ozzy with that, but yeah, it's for me, it's an interesting case study because I was so into the first 2 albums. Speaking of Devil, I thought, I don't know, I thought it was all right. I wasn't a big, I didn't like the way Brad Gillis played those songs. I know a lot of people like that album. And I like the Jakey Lee stuff, but then, subsequently you find out what Sharon Osbourne did. You find out more about, I think Sharon Osbourne really ruins the Ozzy Ozzy mystique too, because she's such a evil person at times. And yeah, that's where I'm at. It's really, I really did a 180 with Ozzy throughout the 80s. I don't know. How do you feel about, I mean,
Well, I agree with you about the first two albums are probably the strongest. And I actually, neither of us picked anything off of Diary of a Madman, which is probably my favorite. I had a hard time picking worst songs. I think we probably should have included, even though it was from the 90s, No More Tears. Even though I actually quite like No More Tears. That's the last Ozzy album where I like most of the album. But I think it would have given you a little bit more things to think about because I think you're a little bit less on No More Tears.
oh yeah, I can't stand it.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Mom, I'm coming home though. I mean, which is interesting too, because Lemmy in his book says he made more money off of that song, Mom, I'm Coming Home, than he did his entire Motorhead catalog. Anyway,
yeah,
go on.
interesting.
Yeah.
No, but I'm actually, what was interesting was I've always had a hard time getting into the Ultimate Sin. And we did do a Dark Horse album, and I can't remember what I gave it. I don't think I gave it a fail, but I think I might have maybe gave it a 5 or a 6 or something like this. But going back and listening to it for this, I had a really hard time picking tracks from that album to say I don't like these songs, or they should be on a worst of. So that was something interesting I learned from this exercise, was that I actually like Ultimate Sin quite a bit more than I think I do in my head when I think about the albums. But yeah, I guess other than that, unless there's anything else.
No.
Cool.
No,
Is there anywhere we can find you?
At this time, just the Contrarians. Yeah. I think I'll be on, well, I know that Peter is on vacation, and when he gets back, we're supposed to do a couple episodes, but right now, just Contrarians.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Joe. I have a feeling we'll see you around again. And
definitely.
Yeah, if you like our content, give us a like and subscribe. You can also follow us and support us on Patreon, Ko-Fi, TeePublic. We have some stuff, and I guess we'll see you all next time. So, let us know what you think. Would you buy this album if Ozzy put it out? Was
I still vote for Barf at the Moon, by the way.
But, yeah, that was a good. We had two good titles for contention. Yeah. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you think. Would you have added any songs, taken any songs off? And maybe we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.